Hello everyone, welcome to an ESO build video. So today we are covering my Magblade PvP build. And I gotta say, despite Magblade's interesting spot in PvP this patch, I've been having a really good time with this thing. I've actually been having a really good time with this thing. So, just to get started, we'll go over the stats real quick as per usual. And as you can see, unbuffed, which we are using Necropotence by the way, that's why I say unbuffed. We have 45.5k max Magicka, 25k max health, and 18, almost 19,000 max stamina. Pretty good stats overall. Decently high mag recovery. Squishy as hell for a light armor build, as per usual. You guys know me. We are running the Mage Mundus Stone. Bewitch Sugar Skulls, which is my favorite food buff in the game if I can get away with it recovery-wise. And we are a stage 2, though it doesn't really matter so long as you're at least above 2. Stage 2 Vampire. Vampirism, as per usual, is completely optional in this build. I don't actually use any vampire skills. I just run Vampire because I can. I like Vampirism. What can I say? So yeah. I say we just move over into the skills. And to start things off on our back bar, we are running Shadow Image. This is our pet. This is what procs our Necropotence. Also puts Minor Maim on a single target at a time. Pretty good. And we can teleport back to it within the duration as long as we're fairly close. And overall, it's just a really good skill for Nightblade. I highly recommend having it. Especially if there's verticality in your PvP fights. This is the ultimate tool to juke people out. Works really, really good. And I've seen some really badass Nightblade plays with this. Next up is Elemental Drain. This, to me, is just mandatory for mag tunes. Again, I think I said this on my Mag DK build. I applaud anyone who can play their characters without it. I rely on this skill so heavily. So heavily. Puts Major Breach on the target, and it gives you an effective 600 Magicka recovery while damaging a target with it on it. If you're fighting anything with a Purge, I just spam it. It's free. Keep it up on your target. It's going to really help your sustain out. Next up is Impale, and this is actually one of the nice things about playing Magblade. You have an execute on this class. Most classes don't. Most mag classes do not have this, and it's really, really nice having one. The choice for this skill, it's either this, or you can run a CC, in my opinion. You can run Mass Hysteria, or you could run Flame Clench. Me, personally, I'm sticking with the execute. I find that really the extra CC hasn't helped me as nearly as much as this has. So I'm going to be personally sticking with the execute, but if you're not comfortable not running a main CC, then I would recommend Destructive Clench or Mass Hysteria. For the spammable, we're running Swallow Soul, and honestly, I don't recommend any alternative to this. Swallow Soul is such a good ability. It's a big amount of healing over time, good damage overall, procs passes fairly reliably, and overall it's just a good thing to have. Granted, due to our ultimate choice, either one of these can proc the passive, but that's besides the point. Am I getting sniped? Anyway, we'll just back up for now so I can continue on with this video. Next up is Merciless Resolve, and this is our main burst tool. Does a hefty amount of damage, and if we're right in their face, heals us for half of it. Now, the way to proc this is every time you do a light attack, you get a stack, and every time you do a heavy attack, you get 2 stacks. At 5 stacks, you can cast this again, and you hit him with, for that ultimate level, it does about as much damage as an ultimate does. It hits like a bus. It's a really good skill. I would say its only downside is it does have a little bit of a weird travel time, and that's why I don't tend to run other CCs with it, as it's kind of hard to guarantee the land. I find the only way I've ever guaranteed this is casting Soul Tether and then this immediately after. It's the only time I've ever guaranteed this. But anyway, next up for our ultimate is Soul Tether. Why do I run this over Incapacitating Strike? Pure personal preference, to be honest. Pure personal preference. I find I like the AoE CC more. This heals me as well, which means I have an oh shit button on my main bar. And to top it all off, it does allow me the freedom of changing spammables, which I have done in the past when I was running this as a melee build. Because you need one siphoning skill on each of your bars. You have to have at least one siphoning skill on each bar. And having this ultimate here allows me the freedom to change this out whenever I want to. However, I find that I really have been liking this more than anything else. So if you would prefer to run Incapacitating Strike, feel free. The only thing to keep note, these are your CCs. on this particular build, I do not have a crowd control aside from these ultimates, which is why I chose this one primarily, because it's an AoE. Doesn't require you to aim it. There's no chance the target can dodge it. It actually catches people in dodge, which is really nice. And like I said, it's just a really good ultimate overall. I drastically prefer this. Also, this is honestly, if you guys saw the first week, this got changed back to a stun, because this is no longer silence. This is back to a stun. If you haven't, go back and watch some clips. It's hilarious. Anyway, moving on to our back bar, we have Dark Cloak, and this is a major departure for me. I am no longer running a stealth Magblade. I've given up on stealth. And this has been a long time coming. Stealth has always been a hit or miss for me. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it. And I finally just got to the point where the inconsistency of stealth for me has made me decide just to go straight for the healing and damage mitigation. 8% damage reduction and a really solid heal. It's a really good skill. I highly recommend it. Spam this a lot. It also is very easy. Having this ability up, it's very easy to remember that you need to keep spamming this to keep your armor buff up. Because if you don't know, Nightblades do not have an armor buff. Instead, what we have is this, which is 7.5 second duration in my case. And this is our armor buff every time we cast a shadow skill. So anytime we cast this or this, this is our armor buffs. Anything from here. So if you're running a melee Magblade, this procs it as your spammable, which is really nice. But as long as you're rotating Dark Cloak and Shadow Image pretty reliably, you're going to keep your armor buff up 100% of the time. It's very easy to do. Next up is Race Against Time. You can also run Mistform here if you'd like, but I prefer Race Against Time just in general. One, you get to use your stamina, which is nice. Two, and one of the main reasons I prefer Race Against Time is the crit damage buff. Get that crit damage buff. Your healing over time is always ticking while you're using this compared to Mistform. It's just a really, really good skill. However, if you do not have access to this guild line, then I would highly recommend either replacing it with Race Against Time or Phantasmal Escape. But note that Phantasmal Escape does not give you Major Expedition. Alright, next up is Rapid Regeneration. This is one of the best heals in the game right now, and if you are a Magic Toon, I highly recommend it. It is so powerful. So powerful. It's literally like one of the best heals in the game. Trust me, just level Resto Staff if you don't already have it. For our burst heal, because the class really doesn't have one, we are running Dampen Magic, and this thing has been working really well. Honestly, it's been working really well. You spam this while you have your other heals ticking underneath it, and you're up in no time. It actually does a really good job. Anytime you're on your back bar, I highly recommend casting this before swapping back to your front bar. It gives you that nice little time, an extra little bit of damage shield to work with. That extra health goes a long way, especially when fighting like sorcerers. Last but not least is siphoning attacks, and this is optional in my opinion. If you're a Breton, you probably don't need this. I really like this. It's a good amount of sustain, especially for an on-CP, which is what I primarily play. And yeah, this is I highly recommend this skill. It's really good. You can also run Leeching Strikes if you would prefer to get the extra stamina sustain. You can run Leeching Strikes, but I prefer siphoning. Ultimate wise, we are running Life Giver, and you have a couple options for the back bar ultimate, by the way. You can run Life Giver for a big amount of healing. I highly recommend this ultimate on Magblade. You can run Temporal Guard, though the only time I would run Temporal Guard is if you were running the stealth option of Cloak and not Dark Cloak, because these two buffs do not overlap. And last, actually probably just straight out last, you could run Devouring Swarm. Now, as you can see, I'm running the other morph right now because I was experimenting with a little interesting interaction with this ultimate. But honestly, I think Life Giver is just the best fit for Magblade. It's a really good ultimate, and because the class generates ultimate so quickly, it's up a lot. So it's really good. Alright, so on with the sets. And set-wise, we are running Engine Guardian, which overall we are running... overall, I like Engine Guardian. In my opinion, Magsork and Magblade do really, really well with this set. Especially since I'm also running Necropotence, this does count as a pet, which helps, so we don't always have to worry about our shades uptime, since Engine Guardian does count. And yeah, it just gives us a good stream of different resources. It helps make up for the fact we're not running tripods on this build. Next up, Necropotence, which I think I've already mentioned this set probably 5 times since we started this build video. And what this does is it's just max Magicka, more max Magicka, and when you have a pet up 3 times that amount of max Magicka, it's really, really good. Good set to have. If you don't want to worry about pet uptime, Crafty Alfique is your alternative. It's slightly less, but it doesn't require the pet. For our front bar, we are running spinners. We are running an infused shock staff, and the reason we're running shock is because shock procs minor vulnerability when its status effect goes off. So that is why we're doing it. In reason infused over Nirnhoned is because this is a max Magicka build. We don't need spell damage all that much. So I went for infused for the raw damage and the extra chances of getting this glyph to proc. For our jewelry, we are running all arcane and actually all Magicka recovery glyphs. I forgot. I honestly didn't remember I was running all Magicka recovery, but it's been working really good. And on our back bar, we are running the Maelstrom Restoration Staff, which is whenever you critically heal with regeneration, you restore 800 Magicka. This effect can occur every 4 seconds. Which, with rapid regen, this can proc twice in a rapid regen. If operating at max capacity, this can proc twice. It's super helpful. If you do not have a Maelstrom Restoration Staff, I would highly recommend picking yourself up one of these. Hold on. I can't spell worth a damn, but it came up anyway. A Restoration Staff of the Potentates, which is 5% damage mitigation while on your back bar. Now, these are my 2 favorite Resto Staffs. I alternate these between my Mag Blade and my Mag DK at the moment. If you do not want or have either one of these, if you do not have a Maelstrom or a Potentates, Willpower is a great substitute. But personally, I would recommend one of these 2 Restoration Staffs. Yeah, I think that's really all it is for alternatives there. You do not have to run as much recovery as I am if you're comfortable with less, but I personally need a lot. However, if you're comfortable with less stamina than I am, you could also run Witchmo's Potent Brew and get a couple extra spell damage glyphs in here. That choice is up to you. I personally like to build the way it is, so I'm going to leave it as such. Now, let's hop over into the CP section. Oh, before I do that, sorry. We are running all Impenetrable. We are running triglyphs on the big pieces, or we're supposed to be. I'm looking at you, Helmet. We're running Max Magicka glyphs on the small pieces. And we are running Arcane Mag Recovery on all the jewelry. This is set Infused Shock, Infused Weapon Spell Damage. Alright, so that's it for the traits. Now let's hop into the CP. And I'm going to leave my normal disclaimer. I play more Battlegrounds than I do CP, so take my champion points with a grain of salt. This does work really well in duels, though. I can attest to that. 56 Ironclad, 17 Spell Shield, 50 Resistant, 17 Light Armor Focus, 56 Thick Skinned. God, what is with me in all the high thick skinned builds? See, this is what I mean. I play more non-CP. Take this out and add it to these 2. Drop this down to like 24 and add it to these 2. Anyway, these should be like in their 40s. All right, moving on. Nothing over here. You could also take a bunch of points out of this and put them into quick recovery. 11 Siphoner, 56 Warlord, 75 Arcanist, 27 Tenacity, 81 Tumbling, and 20 Shadow Ward. Over in the blue, we have 66 Elfborn, 64 Elemental Expert, 45 Spell Erosion, 14 Staff Expert, a little higher than I normally do, but because light attacks are so important to Magblade Burst, I decided I wanted to get a little extra damage out of them. And 81 Master at Arms. We run nothing in Thaumaturge because dots are worthless this patch, which brings me back. Reduce this. I don't know why I have it this high on this build. It's one thing to have it at like 40 or something, but God, 56 is too much for this patch. Too much for this patch. Yeah. So, options for race. That's what we want to cover next. We are a Dark Elf. If you're running a High Elf, you do not have to make any changes to this build. Aside from that, if you're running Breton, you can cut out some sustain to make up the difference, get a little extra damage, and the Breton will cover the missing sustain. Argonian, same boat. You get a lot of extra sustain out of being an Argonian, skill extra healing. And for Khajiit, Khajiit is a bit of a mystery to me. I know they have a little bit of recovery, but I don't know if they have enough to make up for losing a glyph. So I would give a little trial and error there if you're a Khajiit and just see what works best for you. As I say with all my builds, glyphs are very changeable and very malleable to your own personal preference. Is there anything else we need to cover? Oh, potions. That is the last thing I want to cover. And the only reason I want to specifically cover potions on this build compared to normal is this is the only build I have that currently gets its major sorcery from a potion. Now, you can either run Essence of Spell Power, which, you know, major sorcery, major prophecy, and restores Magicka. Great. You can run Essence of Spell Detection, which is increase your stealth detection, major sorcery, and restore Magicka. Or if you're a cheapskate like me, which I do this a lot, so don't feel bad if you do, you can also just buy Alliance Spell Drops, which they're not quite as good as homemade potions, but they'll do the trick in a pinch. And they'll give you major sorcery for a decent little bit, as well as some Magicka back. So those are your 3 options for potions. I'm sure there's some other ones that give sorcery, but I don't know them off the top of my head. So there you go. And yeah, that is it for the build. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're staying safe out there. Like I said, things have been a little scary out there recently, so I hope everyone's staying safe, taking the proper precautions. And yeah, so have a good one, guys. I will see you all in the next one. I said this in my Dragon Knight build, but I want to repeat it here. The next build we will be doing is my Warden tank, and that'll probably be next Thursday. After that, I'm not really sure where we're going to go with builds, because I'm kind of at the point where I'm done with my PvP builds for this patch. I might do one of my Magicka Templar, but I don't actually have the gear grinded that I have in the written guide, and that would just be a little awkward. I have good substitutes, but it's not the exact gear, and I feel a little bad posting videos on it. As for my Magicka Necromancer, I haven't quite found something I'm happy with. So, no promises there. Anyways, have a good one, guys. I will see you all next week, and yeah, peace out.